Hey everybody, welcome to Every Day with Ron Stasko. As you can see, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. About 50% today. I did make it to work and was able to get some things accomplished to the best of my ability. Today is Wednesday, and it is the 15th of January. We're already halfway through the first month of the new year. The whole point of Every Day is to encourage you to spend time with God and in God's Word every day. The more time you spend in God's Word, the deeper your knowledge and understanding of Him can become, and also there's a greater chance that you can have a better relationship with Him. And really, this is about fostering a relationship with God. Today we're reading Genesis chapters 21, 22, and 23, Psalm 107, and Mark chapter 8. Some of these are starting to get a little longer with more reading, so I've been starting to break up the segments into two parts, and it looks like we might continue with that progression as it's a little bit easier to manage. So in chapter 21 of Genesis, there's the account of the birth of Isaac. Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah, and as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, and at the very time God had promised him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son of Sarah born to him. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham had him circumcised as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." And she added, "Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children, yet have borne him a son in his old age?" Hagar and Ismael sent away. A few chapters ago we read about Sarah trying to foster a child through her slave servant Hagar, and it worked. She was able to give her servant to her husband, and he impregnated her, and then the jealousy took over, and then Ishmael was born, and God made the promise with Hagar that he would bless her son. Excuse me. So now that she has her own son, she feels like she's going to move this other family out of the way. This is one thing about Sarah. She's very jealous. As Isaac grew and was weaned, and on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking. And she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that slave woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son. But God said to him, Do not be so distressed about the boy and your maidservant. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the maidservant into a nation also, because he is your offspring." Early in the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered into the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down nearby, about a bow shot away, for she thought, "I cannot watch the boy die." And as she sat there nearby, she began to cry. She began to sob, which is like a heavy cry. God heard the boy crying, and an angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up, take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up, and he lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, "God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me and the country where you are living as an alien the same kindness I have shown to you." Abraham said, "I swear it." Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized. But Abimelech said, "I don't know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I heard about it only this day." So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs from the flock, and Abimelech asked Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs you have set apart by themselves?" He replied, "Accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I dug this well." So this place was called Beersheba, which means the well of the 7, or well of the oath. So after the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called upon the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. So you got some things happen here in chapter 21. Again, Sarah is very jealous. She makes her husband send Hagar and Ishmael away. Abraham's distressed about the matter. God says, listen to your wife on this matter. I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to make your son Ishmael a great nation. Now, I don't know what kind of relationship that Abraham had with Ishmael after this point, but the boy grew up in the desert and learned to be a great archer, and again, he was the wild donkey of a man, so you can imagine what kind of man he was. But God blessed him and provided for him. Again, the mother had confirmation from a second angel that her son would be a great nation, and in that time of need, the water was provided for them when they thought they would die in the desert. So from a life standpoint, and today, it's just a cruel situation the whole way around that Hagar never asked for. Now, she got her freedom because of her son, which was something I'm sure she didn't expect. But she was left to care for this child in the desert, and at a very distressing time, God came to her and revealed himself to her, and it was her relationship with God that protected her, because God favors widows and orphans and single moms, and I can tell you that for sure. Okay? And single dads. Then Abimelech sees that Abraham continues to grow in his favor with the Lord, and goes back and doubles down on making sure that Abraham isn't going to come against him. So they form a truce to make sure that everything's hunky-dory, and that Abraham gets his well back. So in chapter 22, Abraham is tested. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to Abraham, "Abraham." "Here I am," Abraham replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about." Well, early the next morning, Abraham got up, saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place that God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to one of his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke to his father, and he said, "Father." "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham!" "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld me. You have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its thorns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." And to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand of the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me." Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. It's a big place in the Bible, in all time of the Bible. We talked in 21 about in Genesis 21 about his relationship with his son Ishmael, and from the wording here in chapter 22, it shows you that Abraham did not have any further relation with his son Ishmael, because God referred to Isaac as Abraham's only son, which is sad for Ishmael, because he didn't have the father that he should have. He ended up having to grow up without his father Abraham. And unfortunately, like so many, it's by choice. But for whatever reason, God felt it was necessary to put Abraham to the test to see if he was willing to sacrifice the only son that he'd been given after the 100 years of trying. And probably 108 years of trying at this point, and see if he would be willing to sacrifice his son to the Lord. Now, I don't believe I could do this. As much as I'd like to think I'm a holy and righteous person, I don't think I could do this. I would sacrifice myself before I sacrifice my children. That's kind of the way I would go about things. But in this case, God was calling him to do this. This was a different time. This was a different era. I don't know how I would have responded in that time, because I didn't grow up in that time. But it takes great faith for you to take what you hold most dear and what you spent your whole life for, to lay it on the altar and sacrifice it because God asked you to. And that could be a job, it could be a relationship that's unhealthy, it could be any number of things, property or a career. In this case, this was Abraham's son. And he laid it on the altar. He had time to think about this whole process because he had to prepare everything. He had to gather the wood. He had to take the materials and carry the fire all this way and then climb a mountain and do it on the top of this mountain. So it wasn't like he didn't have like 10 minutes to accomplish this. He had to think about this the whole time. And he had people there that had to say, hey, stay here and go take care of something. He goes up the mountainside. His son's starting to catch on here. He might be a child. I don't know how old he was, 5, 6, 8 years old. And it says, you know, he's old enough to know, hey, where's the lamb? You know, he's seen sacrifices before. He's seen his father do this on a regular basis. He understands that he has the wood, and you have the fire. There's one more thing that you need, and that's the sacrifice. I can't imagine what was going through this child's mind when Isaac had when Abraham bound his son Isaac. You know, I'm guessing if he bound his son, he wrapped him in a rope. I don't know if the son stood still willingly. I don't know if the son was catching on and getting scared. But I would imagine that if you understood enough about the fire and the wood, that you understood what was about to happen. So this may have been very traumatic for Isaac. I don't know. Maybe he's young enough where he didn't remember it. Maybe he just thought it was something where his dad was doing something to show him how the lamb felt. I don't know what he told his son. You know, maybe he was trying to talk to his son and calm his son and coax his son and explain to him, you know, this is what the lamb feels when they're sacrificed, to make it more real to him and understand the importance of it. Because it doesn't say that the son cried out. It doesn't say that he was afraid. It doesn't say any of that. It says that he bound his son and laid him on the altar. So you know, he laid him on the altar. He was gentle with them. And then he reached out his hand and he took the knife. So he had to go and grab the knife. And once he grabbed the knife, God knew he was committed. Now, it doesn't say he had it over his head. I know I've seen depictions of him raising his arm up like this on movies and stuff like that. It doesn't say that he did that. It says that he reached out his hand and he took the knife to slay his son. So, you know, we don't know what happened in that, but an angel of the Lord called out from heaven. So even before he could see the angel was calling out to him, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, I'm here. But he said, don't lay a hand on the boy. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And then God provided the ram stuck in a thicket. And when he did, he was able to sacrifice the lamb in its place. So, the end of the chapter reads about Nahor's sons. Sometime later, Abraham was told that Milcah, who was his mother, was also a mother, she was born sons to your brother Nahor, Uz and Buz, Kemuel, Kesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. Rebekah bore these 8 sons to Abraham's brother. Milcah bore these 8 sons to Abraham's brother Nahor and his concubine, whose name was Reumah, who also had sons Tebah, Giham, Tehash, and Makkah. So they just give a little lineage of Abraham's brother's family, the cousins. Okay, that is chapter 21 and 22. I'm going to continue 23 and Psalm 107 and Mark 8 in the second segment. Thank you for tuning in to Every Day.